Welcome to the first time global event on World Pre-Diabetics Day. I'm Pallavi, your host for the evening. August 14 marks the beginning of a larger initiative to spread awareness about pre-diabetics and flatten the curve of diabetics. EconomicTimes.com is happy to host top doctors and healthcare stakeholders from Pitterfly, Roche Diagnostics, Dr. Lal PathLabs, and USP Private Limited for this global movement to fight pre-diabetics. This 90 minutes long session will focus on ways to identify the silent symptoms and what needs to be done after you are diagnosed with prediabetics. This session is open to everyone who wish to increase their general awareness about prediabetics to help themselves and their family members. We have designed the agenda keeping in mind the questions and the queries received by thousands of readers who have registered for this event. Let me now introduce our respected panelists for the evening. Dr. Sanjay Kalra, Senior Endocrinologist and immediate past President of Endocrine Society of India. He is also the Vice President of South Asian Federation of Endocrine Societies. Dr. Rakesh Sahai. Professor Sahai is a well-known endocrinologist based in Hyderabad. He is the President-elect for Endocrine Society of India and currently Vice President of South Asian Federation of Endocrine Societies. Dr. Ganpati Bantwal, Senior Endocrinologist with 2 decades of experience. He is the President of the Endocrine Society of India. Dr. Arvinder Singhal, co-founder and CEO of Pitterfly, a leading digital therapeutics company. Mr. Umar Sharif, head of Roche Diabetics Care India, Middle East and Africa. Mr. Umar has 20 years of strong sales and marketing experience at the global level. Dr. Mangesh Tivaskar, well-known physician, practicing for the last 2 decades in Mumbai and is the Secretary General of Association of Physicians of India, the largest physician body in India. Mr. Shankar Banerjee, COO of Dr. Lal PathLabs. Mr. Shankar Banerjee has over 2 decades of global experience in customer-centric roles in B2C and B2B segments. Last but not the least, Ms. Farida Hussain, Chief Marketing Officer of USV Private Limited. Ms. Farida heads India and emerging markets for USV. She has been an honorary professor at NMIMS Mumbai for pharma marketing and comes with over 30 years of experience. I welcome all of you on this panel. Moving on with the segment, I would now like to invite Dr. Arvinder Singhal to kick off the agenda for the day. Dr. Arvinder.
Thank you, Pallavi, for the warm welcome. It's indeed heartening to see so many big names out here. And it has been, some kind of challenge getting all the busy and really renowned people here. But finally, to see them here on this particular day, which we thought about last year with Dr. Kalra and Dr. Bantwal, and to see it actually happening is something really good. So if we look at these numbers, I think all the doctors and people who care for diabetes in this webinar, we all know the numbers, right? We are progressing from 2019 to 2045. And if we don't do anything, these are the numbers, how they look like. 134 million people with diabetes in India in 2045. And we are sitting at the cusp of India at 75, but these numbers speak something else. Now, India is also called that we are going to reap the demographic dividend of young population, but a lot of these people who are young now, they will reach their 30s and 40s, and they'll be at huge risk of diabetes if we do not do anything right away. But the future can be very different. And we know that anyone who develops type 2 diabetes, they go through a state of pre-diabetes, also called borderline diabetes. Currently, as of the estimates today, we have 90 million people living with pre-diabetes, and 75% of them estimate to develop diabetes within the next 5 to 7 years. So the whole purpose of celebrating Pre-Diabetes Day is let's work together to prevent the progression to diabetes. Let's make a significant impact and decrease the burden of diabetes in India. And how are we going to do it? We want to work together to create awareness. And this can begin by recognizing pre-diabetes as a separate focus area. We should work on creating awareness for risk factors for diabetes. And for that, we have created a pre-diabetes risk test. We should diagnose these people quite early by doing glycemic testing, especially for people who are at risk. And we should work together to stop the progression by using various diabetes prevention strategies and techniques. I'm just so glad to have Economic Times hosting this event because typically most of our medical events are hosted in medical forums. But with Economic Times, we can reach out to larger public and talk about the common problems which people face and think about day in and day out. With the COVID, people are even more aware of diabetes and want to do something about their health. By bringing Roche Diabetes Care, Lal PathLabs, USV Pharma, 3 companies which really care for people with diabetes on this platform, we have endeavored to provide that kind of outlet for the people. And reputed doctors, I remember when I was talking to Dr. Banpal last year and Dr. Kalla, they did not hesitate even for a moment when I asked them to join us. When I called up Mr. Omar Sharif or Mr. Shankho Banerjee or Ms. Farida, they all agreed to be a part of this event. They did not hesitate even for a moment to join this. And even Dr. Mangesh Tiwaskar, in his busy schedule, I just called him. He said, "Dost, I will be there for this event. You just tell me when it is." So it's just great to get all the support from the people out here, and it's wonderful to have them on this forum. So our campaign will continue beyond 14th of August. This is the first day of the event. We are going to continue with the hashtag Fight Prediabetes, aiming to touch lives of 1 million people together, all of us. And this will culminate with the Diabetes Day on 14th of November. 20 corporates have already agreed for online webinars, free risk assessments, and social media campaigns. And I'm happy to invite all the listeners if they want to join, and if any corporates wants Fitterfly or any of the partners out here to approach them for these kind of complementary activities. 10 startups have also joined, and I'm hoping a lot of doctors will also propagate the cause of this event. In this event, we will also be giving diabetes prevention packages supported by all the partners for about 100 people. So with that, I would like to kick off the meeting and welcome everyone. And thank you so much for joining us.
Indeed, it's a great initiative. And in this fight for pre-diabetics, I want to now move on to Dr. Kalra. And I want to understand from you if you can help us take us through, as in how can pre-diabetics be simplified? What is your take and your opening comments, sir?
Thanks, Pallavi. The word itself is self-explanatory. Diabetes is a syndrome of high glucose levels. And pre-diabetes is a disease condition or is a state where you catch the patient before he or she reaches the level of diabetes. So if we are able to catch the patient at the level of diabetes, at pre-diabetes, that's like prevention. Prevention is better than cure. And if we can catch our patients at that level, we are preventing diabetes and preventing the complications of diabetes. We are promoting health. Just 3 magic numbers to understand pre-diabetes. If your fasting glucose is between 100 and 125 milligram percent, that is pre-diabetes.
Okay.
Had it been below 100, that was normal. Had it been 126 and above, that would have been diabetes. If your daytime glucose, any time apart from fasting, whether it is after taking 75 grams of glucose, or maybe it is after a meal, or checked randomly at any time of the day, if it is between 140 and 200, that is pre-diabetes.
Okay.
Below 140 is normal. Above 200 is diabetes. And then there's a term known as HbA1c, glycated hemoglobin. If that is between 5.7 and 6.4, that is pre-diabetes. We follow these numbers in India because they are used by the American Diabetes Association as well. We do have different numbers from the World Health Organization and from NICE, which is a British body, but they are not used across the world. You must have remembered, Pallavi, there's this story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. So Goldilocks went into that webinar, and then some speakers were too long and some were too short and some were just right. Pre-diabetes is the just right condition. It's the Goldilocks zone. You catch the patient there. You can prevent pre-diabetes. You can prevent the disease from becoming too big, from becoming unmanageable. If you've done it before that, then unnecessarily you're troubling so many healthy people and forcing them to follow diet and exercise. So this is the Goldilocks zone that we must catch.
Sure. Well, I think more so it also somehow concerns with whether people are actually aware or not. Do they really even bother to check that whether they are at the risk or not? We'll cover all that in the upcoming panel discussion. But let me now move on to our next expert, Dr. Ganpati Banpal. Your opinions, your entire perspective about the risk factors for pre-diabetics, and also if you could take us through the launch of the pre-diabetics risk calculator.
Thank you, Pallavi, and thank you, Arvinda, for inviting me to this important event. As Dr. Kalra told, pre-diabetes is actually the precursor before you develop diabetes, and hence the risk factors for diabetes are the same. The most important risk factor being obesity. One little bit difference in Asians or Indians is you may not be obese, but then you have more abdominal obesity. And this is also a risk factor because you are more insulin resistant. If you have a family history of diabetes, then your risk of developing pre-diabetes is also more. If you have had a past history of gestational diabetes, or you are given birth to a child more than 4 kgs, and maybe in an Indian setting, we'll tell anything more than 3.5 kgs, that means to say that you are actually at high risk of developing diabetes in future. If you have had a history of polycystic ovarian disease, that's also a risk factor. If you're older age, as we age, the risk for developing diabetes increases. Similarly, if you have obstructive sleep apnea, if you have acanthosis nigricans, these are all risk factors for the development of diabetes. If you have a high triglycerides with a low HDL, so this is also a precursor. That means you are at high risk for developing diabetes, because this pattern of dyslipidemia happens because you have increased insulin or insulin resistance, which produces this pattern. If you have a sedentary lifestyle, you're not exercising at all, so then this is also a risk factor for developing diabetes. Now, why are we concerned about this? Because you, at this time also, you have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke. And but the good news is, as has already been told, if you work out for at least 60 minutes a day, this is for Indians, though the ADA and recommends at least 30 minutes per day, 5 days a week, 150 minutes. But for Indians, because we are more insulin resistant and we have more insulinopenic, we call it, we have less insulin reserve. So in them, at least 60 minutes of exercise with a healthy lifestyle, eating patterns could actually prevent the progression of developing diabetes.
Sure. So this sets the tone right. We've already somehow started, at least initiated the conversation about what pre-diabetics is and what are the risk factors. Before we move on to the next segment, which would be the panel discussion, there is an announcement for the attendees, for everyone who's joined. There is a small test which you need to take up, which we already just launched over here. I request all the joinees to do this quick 2 minutes pre-diabetics risk test. I'll paste the link in this chat box. You can check it and know whether you are at the risk of pre-diabetics and what are the things that you need to address later on. So I've already pasted the link here. Everyone who's watching it can definitely check whether they are at the risk of pre-diabetics. If your score is 5 or above, you stand to win a diabetics prevention package, which is worth 6,000. So go ahead and check the link right away. Let me now move on to our next segment, which is the panel discussion. And my first question is for Dr. Ganpati Bantwal. We're all talking about the awareness levels. And of course, there's a lot of talk about diabetics. But now that we are talking about pre-diabetics, especially on a day like August 14, which is also World Pre-Diabetics Day, could you help us understand how has COVID impacted this whole conversation and people's awareness when it comes to both these conditions of diabetics as well as pre-diabetics?
So as you know, we are in the COVID pandemic, and people are aware that persons with diabetes, if they contract COVID, are at high risk for developing complications. So this is one part of the story. So they know that. So that's the reason what's happened is there is an increased awareness, at least during this time, to keep the blood glucose under check. The second thing is, when you have moderate to severe COVID, you are started on steroids, and that's going to worsen your glucose control. And this is another aspects which have made, once again, the people with diabetes to know that, yes, they should control this. Otherwise, the risk of developing complications are more, including there's a slightly increased risk of mortality. And also, the COVID has helped. It has made people, because of these lockdowns and all, they made people to exercise more, eat healthily. Of course, people are sitting at home and doing a lot of work, but the awareness has gone that it's a lockdown only for going out, but then it's not for eating. So they have come to a conclusion that, yes, I must eat less. Otherwise, if I contract COVID, I'm at high risk for developing complications of COVID. So by this, the awareness actually increased, at least for control. And last but not the least, COVID per se can also lead to development of new onset diabetes. So that's another thing. So people are worried. They're checking their glucose in a normal person's, say after a month or two, to see how they contracted diabetes. So these are the 4 aspects I would say COVID has come helped.
Sure. So there have been a lot of realizations. You addressed the pandemic time, the lockdown period. But I now want to move on to Dr. Mangesh Devaskar, and I want to understand from you, how do doctors, view pre-diabetics and what needs to be changed? You could share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you, Pallavi, and good evening, everybody. Thank you, friends, for being here with us. Thank you, Arbinder and Dr. Sanjay Kalra, for this beautiful opportunity. And it's a pleasure to see you all here. Of course, the perception of doctors as far as diabetes, especially during these COVID times, and their awareness surely has changed. With the continuous educational efforts by many of the doctors and especially diabetes organizations, which are effectively working at the global level as well as at the national level, they have been, I would say, somehow successful in creating that awareness of importance of picking up diabetes early, because we all know that our country needs more of a prevention of diabetes. If at all, we need to stop this onslaught of, I would say, non-communicable disease, and especially in diabetes. Because if you realize, India as an economy has got not that much of significant and sustained contribution as far as the healthcare sector is concerned in comparison to the developed countries. So as we are probably low socioeconomic countries, we need to have preventive approaches much more, and which as a community, every one of us has started realizing. And I am more than sure about that. These efforts like this, not only doctors, but the common people also will start realizing the importance of prevention and trying and attempting to walk on the correct path to stop this menace that we are facing.
Sure. My next question would be for Ms. Farida, and we want to understand, is there any research which is going on for pre-diabetics? Are there any eye-openers? If you can share that with the audiences here.
Yeah, so thank you once again, Dr. Arbinder, Dr. Kalra, and Fitterfly Group and everybody, and thanks everyone for being a part of this very wonderful and a unique initiative. So the question is, so I was just kind of scanning through the research which is being carried out in pre-diabetes, and to my surprise, on PubMed, if you see that there are about almost 10 lakh research papers on diabetes, and of which about 2.5 lakhs are funded by NIH. Whereas if you see pre-diabetes, there are only about 26,000 research which is going on. And again, NIH is funding only around 7,500, research which is going on. The type of research that is going on is kind of encompassing, it is clinical research, there is research on complications, and there is also very, very important research is on the behavior of the individuals who have got pre-diabetes as to how is it that they behave. Why is it that there is an inertia in kind of, following healthy lifestyle, etc., etc. So I think that although research is not to that great extent in pre-diabetes, and that is the reason why this particular initiative becomes very, very relevant, that together, all of us must also focus on research which is kind of actionable and which will make our individuals with pre-diabetes more sensitive to and sensitize them to the fact that yes, they must prevent pre-diabetes in order to kind of prevent diabetes in the future.
Right. Thanks a lot, Farida, on this. And now I should move on to Mr. Shankar Banerjee. And we're since talking about the general, public awareness levels and their perception and how it needs to be changed. But could you also tell us what is the, public acceptance level about preventive blood checks? And does it really differ between big cities and smaller towns and cities? What is your take?
Right. Thank you, Pallavi, for the question, and good evening, everybody. So what we see is, or rather, a historical perspective, if we look at preventive checkups aren't really traditionally what people in India do very regularly. However, if you look at, let's say, the last 4 or 5 years, there has been a trend where, preventive checkups are really increasing. It's driven primarily, by corporates, a lot of advertising, people are, a lot of promotional events and activities are happening. And what we see is, yes, it is, urban centers are obviously now becoming much more aware. And, the pickup initially has been a lot in the urban centers compared to, let's say, the tier 2 or tier 3 towns. But one would imagine, as I look at data, is, in the last 1 or 2 years, the tier 2 towns and the tier 3 towns also, we see people, coming forward for preventive health checks, which is a very positive sign. And we believe that, this trend, hopefully, but I think it's so minuscule now, that, overall urban and semi-urban, I think all geographies really need to significantly, we'll have to work to step up this whole idea around preventing health risks.
Right, right.
But
In
Pallavi,
fact-
can I contribute a little bit on that?
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Please
thank
go
you
ahead.
very much. I'm sorry for that, but I could not stop myself from commenting on that. As Farida has rightly commented out, Indians are a very special population where we don't stay pre-diabetic for a long time. We quickly get converted to type 2 diabetes in comparison to the Western world. So as Mr. Banerjee was talking about, we need to have the plans. Now, a very funny thing which I wanted to quote here as a coincidence, that as a family, really, we have got, people going out for eating, on the Sundays or on the, holidays or probably Independence Day. But how many times as a family do you ask yourself that, come on now, this is a pre-checkup or a checkup day. So let us go for family as for the health checkups.
Right.
How many of us do that? I think that is necessary. At this time, the people should understand the importance of early diagnosis and early interventions.
Surely. We'll definitely talk about that and cover that in the audience questions. We've already started getting some questions, and there's a question for Dr. Harbinder now. We've already, initiated that risk calculator. I pasted the link in the chat box, but there's a question from Ram Kumar from Chennai. He says, pre-diabetics risk test, what should I do with it? I mean, how should I get myself tested? Could you help answer him, Dr. Harbinder?
I think Dr. Ganpati has already talked about the risk factors for pre-diabetes. I'll just, say that some of the risk factors again. If you're a person above the age of 35 with a family history of diabetes, or if your BMI is above 25 and your waist ratio is like on the higher side, crossing 90 centimeters, and a lot of us have a sedentary lifestyle today. Practically, I've worked from home for the last 1.5 years, except for the days I go for surgery. If you have hypertension, and if it's a woman and she had PCOS, polycystic ovaries, or diabetes during pregnancy, these are the very important risk factors. If you have any of these, then it just takes 2 minutes. You should go ahead and do pre-diabetes risk test. Now, just a word of caution there. This pre-diabetes risk test is not like a blood test, which is like 100% accurate. This is just an indicator. Now, I got some of the emails from my friends who did this pre-diabetes risk test. They said, oh, our risk score is 5, but our HbA1c is normal. Now, you must understand, this is a predictive model, right? We predict based on the mass population that, okay, 10,000 people, if they do this test, and if so many of them score above 5, then this is the relative risk of them actually having pre-diabetes or diabetes. So this just alerts you that you have high risk factors, and you should keep working on those risk factors and get your HbA1c and a fasting blood sugar done, just to be sure whether you have pre-diabetes or not. So please, it just takes 2 minutes. It's free, and it's a awareness initiative. And last year, Dr. Ganpati Bantwal did it in live audience for everyone, and we saw his restore. Dr. Ganpati, you had pre-diabetes. Why don't you just tell us for a minute what all you did for your pre-diabetes?
Well, I'm having actually pre-diabetes for a long time. In fact, it had gone up to 6.2. I'm telling you, it's around 12 years now, I would say. But then I'm doing good physical activity, eating healthily. And even now it's around, it went down up to even 5.6, but this time a little bit of stress, maybe it's come back to 6.2. I started putting on more effort, but then every 6 months I do my HbA1c, and that's keeping it below the diabetic. So I've not progressed for the last 12, 13 years. So at least 1 hour to 1.5 hours of exercise I will do, and these are intense exercises. And if at all I get a time in my, as you know, I work in St. John's, you have a huge campus. So if you walk from one end to the other, for each thing, you'll cover at least 1 kilometer the moment you go to one place to another place. So overall, an hour's of exercise and another 10,000 steps. So 20,000, it will be roughly steps per day. So this is the exercise I do. And of course, eating healthily also.
Dr. Bantwal, if you could answer one additional question, is related to the thing that you mentioned here, that besides the exercise part and the eating habits, what are the other factors that really influence and can help somebody, prevent being diabetic in that transitional time?
Yeah, so number one is stress should also come down, because, stress is a very important factor. And that's the reason I would say in the IT sector, you don't sit at one place. That's another very important risk factor, sitting at one place. So I tell them, you stand and do your work, because you're moving, you're burning out calories also. So that's another one. Sleep well. That's another important thing. Even 1 day sleep, you don't have, your glucose is going to rise a little bit. So you should have at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep on an average. So that's another one. And don't use this, what do you call, of course, you are supposed to use the laptops and all. but then don't use it before you go to sleep. These mobile phones and all that will come in the way of your sleep, and that will actually contribute to the development of diabetes. So I think in general, some of the important factors are these, other than the usual ones.
So these could be just small steps, but which could have the bigger impact. Let's now move on to the next set of presentations. But before that, for those who are attending the session and yet not taken the test, please go ahead and take the test. The link is there in the chat box. If your risk assessment score is 5 or above, you stand a chance to win diabetics prevention package worth 6,000 rupees, which includes the DiabeFly program, blood test, and AccuCheck glucometer. So this package is only for the 100 chosen attendees. Also, there's a gift hamper of Vardham Wellness Teas. Please do the pre-diabetics test right away, find your score, and check if you are eligible for this award or not. Next presentation would be by Dr. Rakesh Sahai. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you, Pallavi, and good evening to all those who have joined. And thank you to Arbinder for inviting me to be here. So what I'll try to do is speak about the risks of pre-diabetes. A lot has been said, but I'll just try to summarize some of the risks of pre-diabetes and how they progress to diabetes. So what we can say is that this is a pre-diabetes is an intermediate stage in the progression from diabetes. We can say that people just don't become diabetics overnight. I mean, they have a very gradual progression in their glucose tolerance, getting deteriorating slowly, and and what we have discussed just now is that we Indians have a very high risk for developing diabetes itself. We have a very high rates of diabetes, and this is because we have higher insulin resistance, and that manifests very early in life. And it may not manifest with pre-diabetes also, because initially it may be just be manifesting with changes in our lipid levels, development of blood pressure, increasing in blood pressure, and our weight going up. So weight going up actually adds on to the insulin resistance. And then, as the insulin secretion starts coming down a little bit, then we tend to develop pre-diabetes, and then we progress to diabetes. So this is how pre-diabetes is like an intermediate. I mean, is a intermediary in between the development of diabetes when you're progressing on the path to diabetes. So you have two great risks. One is that people with pre-diabetes can progress to diabetes. That's the major challenge that we are all discussing about. Apart from that, what we also see is that pre-diabetics, because they have all this metabolic problems that are there, that is, they often have metabolic syndrome, which we are basically, when we say metabolic syndrome, we are trying to say that this person has got he's overweight, he has got central obesity, he has got fat deposited in the abdomen, which is metabolically very active, and is causing changes in the lipid levels, causing blood pressure to go up, and this person is at higher risk of developing heart attacks and strokes. So this is what happens in people with pre-diabetes. They have apart from having that increased risk for developing diabetes, they have many of them have metabolic syndrome. We could say that many of them have metabolic syndrome, which is basically a clustering together of obesity, lipid abnormalities. That is, the typical lipid abnormalities that we're worried about is the low HDL, which is very characteristically seen in Indians, high LDL, and high triglycerides. So, and then apart from that, we have higher blood pressure, and we have some amount of inflammation which is there because of this high greater amount of visceral fat or the abdominal fat that brings out some amount of inflammation, and because of this there's increased risk of developing heart attacks. These heart attacks are at least 2 to 3 times more than in pre-diabetics than the general population. So that's the difference between between the general population and those with pre-diabetes. They have at least 2 to 3 times higher risk of developing heart attacks. Now, if you look at diabetics, they have twice this risk. We could say that they are at least 4 to 8 times higher risk of developing heart attacks and strokes also. So these are the problems that are seen with pre-diabetes. And then we are speaking about the progression to diabetes. So we are all worried about progression to diabetes. So generally the progression rate is about 5 to 10% of pre-diabetics progress to diabetes. But many of them can reverse back also. So one interesting study, I just wanted to show that there was this Spanish study where they looked at a population of pre-diabetics, and they followed them for 10 years. They found that 36% of them could reverse back to normal also. 41% remained as pre-diabetic after 10 years also, and 23% of them became diabetic. So this was a very low rate of progression of just about 30%. But in our country, it's close to about 10%, 7 to 10%. And that's what Arvinder was also saying in his presentation, that 70% of them will become diabetics. And the factors that can predispose to this progression are increasing age, higher BMI, higher triglyceride levels, decreasing physical activity, and HbA1c levels of more than 6%. If they are above 6, then you're more likely to develop pre-diabetes, progress to diabetes than remain there.
Right.
And in our country, as I said, these are the factors which are saying we have a very high carbohydrate diet that actually adds on to the problem, apart from all the things that I've already mentioned. And so these are simple things that can be done, as Dr. Ganpati has himself shown that, he has been able to, prevent progression to diabetes for more than 10 years. And has had regression also sometimes, and then he's remaining in that range only. So that's what we need to do. And lifestyle measures are the most important. They have been shown across different studies, and we have 2 Indian studies also which have shown that lifestyle measures. In fact, the Indian studies showed that nothing additional is gained by adding medicines. It's a lifestyle which brings about a change. And overall, about 30% reduction in progression could be seen with the lifestyle changes in the Indian studies. And those are weight reduction, dietary modification, physical activity, as he said, as Dr. Ganpati said, about 60 minutes in our population, and stopping of smoking, cessation of smoking is very important. And different pharmacological different drugs have been tried which are to use to treat diabetes, but the major problem with these drugs are they can have their adverse effects. Some of them can have adverse effects, and the effect is not persistent. Once you stop the medication, then you go back to that. So these are the issues that I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
In fact, Dr. Sai, if you could also help us understand, is there an average time it takes to reverse your pre-diabetics? You want to prevent it to transforming into diabetics. What is the average time?
It's always a fluid state, as very clearly said by Dr. Ganpati, that when he's exercising, it's all going down. When he stops exercise and a little bit of stress, it goes up again. So it's not that there's a time frame. It could happen within a few months. You could see a change. You could see that you're getting back to normal. So the typical time that is taken to see a change in HbA1c is about 3 months. That's the reason why we have chosen the pre-diabetes days on August 14th, because it takes about 3 months to bring about a meaningful change in the HbA1c, because that's the average lifespan of the RBC, and you can bring about a change in HbA1c in that period. So HbA1c is a very stable marker, so we look at that, and we can make a meaningful change in about 3 months.
So does it also mean, so just a question on this, does it also mean, this can be answered by any one of you, does it also mean that somebody diagnoses and comes to know today, on 14th of August, that, I've been diagnosed with pre-diabetics, or there are certain symptoms. So if there's a substantial lifestyle change and exercises and good eating, there's a possibility one can reverse that in the next 90 days?
Yes, absolutely. On the World Diabetes Day, he can do his HbA1c again and see. And you could see a major difference if the person has brought about changes in his lifestyle. He's certainly going to see a difference on November 14th on the World Diabetes Day if he checks his HbA1c again.
Sure. That makes it even more important to go and get yourself tested. There's a link in the chat box. I've pasted it again. Everyone who's joined in and everyone who's attending this session can check whether they are at the risk or not. Moving on to the next presentation, Dr. Mangesh Devaskar, if you could help us understand the myths behind, because any kind of illness, any kind of medical condition, there are of course certain misconceptions and certain myths. If you could take us through that.
So thank you. So the myths basically are primarily, to have a clear understanding is very, very important as far as the importance of these interventions that everybody spoke about. Most importantly, we need to believe and understand the importance and the value of persistent and continuous, I would say, following up of the guidelines. And that takes me to probably a little bit of discussion on probably a diabetes reversal. So if I am allowed to share the screen for 5 minutes, I'll just, continue with where Dr. Rakesh has left. Is this that we all are under siege, and this is where we need to understand that if at all this is the situation of our country, caught in the modernization versus the healthcare burden, probably diabetes contributes to one of the biggest challenges as far as the economy is concerned. So if at all we have to stop that, we need to bust off your myths. We need to shrug off all those misbeliefs those traditional beliefs that we thought about. This is what even Sanjay has spoke about, that this is what I call it as a window of opportunity to improve ourselves. This is the place where diabetes get diagnosed. But look at this 15 years before the diagnosis of diabetes. This is the place where we intervene effectively. We are surely going to hit the nail on the head of prevention. So if at all you need to attempt reversing the diabetes, this is the place where you need to really hit on. And a correct intervention at very early stage. And that is the reason why pre-diabetes 14th August has been chosen, primarily just a day prior to our Independence Day. Will teach you about independence and absolutely freedom from diabetes. So if at all we need to understand the importance of freedom as a pre-diabetes, I love this 14th August. Why? Because it's just not a day prior to our freedom or Independence Day, but also this is the day probably after 3 months exactly, you are going to have the festive times of Diwali and Garbas and Navratris and all that. So probably people are likely to break their, all those rules and all that. So be careful, and right kind of diets has already been spoken about, correct support and exercise, weight reduction, tobacco cessation, a good monitoring and education will decide. And no matter whichever expert you follow, always remember that lifestyle intervention are the first advice. And you need to understand this beautiful saying by Dr. Gokhan from Harvard, that in human body as a fuel, if at all you impact the fuel resources as anywhere in the world, well, you influence a lot of things. And that is the reason why the action is needed at every possible level. And Sanjay was talking about this. Probably last 2.5 million years, we became Homo erectus and Homo sapiens after the efforts of 2.5 million years of our growth. But last 5 decades, because of our this lifestyle, we have become, all have become Homo diabeticus and Homo obesius, and trying to visit the place which we don't want to visit so early. If at all we need to stop and go back, yes, as Goldilocks wants to say, and as the Goldilocks bear, as Sanjay has talked about, can we go back? Yes, probably another satyagraha is needed. And this satyagraha is these busting of myths that we all need to understand. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Remember that of all the approaches we talk about, really the lifestyle changes currently are the most necessary things and will definitely turn out to be the most pivotal interventions if at all we need to think about stopping the onslaught of all these non-communicable diseases which we are falling prey to. Thank you very much.
That was indeed quite insightful. But there's one more question for you, Dr. Tivaskar, that, it's a common observation that there are 2 times in the year when we see the maximum, people going to the gyms and talking about their lifestyle changes. One is on the New Year's Eve, like 1st of January, everybody wants to be fit. And also, immediately after Diwali and the festive time. So any comments on that, since lifestyle is something it's a... Yes,
that's the beautiful way of probably getting yourself mobilized and probably getting yourself charged up. But as Dr. Rakesh has wonderfully said, that it's a continuous process. Absolutely. It's a continuous process where, because if you try to intervene once you are diagnosed to have diabetes, probably only 20% might go back. But if you intervene them at the phase of pre-diabetes, probably the chance of success is as high as 80 to 100%. And that is the most important thing that we all have to understand, that interventions early, right kind of interventions, right kind of teamwork, and we have experts doing and suggesting you. So probably you can take the help of experts, and they are now quite affordable, they are quite economical, they are available, they are easily accessible. So utilize this opportunities. My sincere humble request to everybody is this: utilize these opportunities and look at your health as your topmost priority, rather than falling into the other aspects. Because I strongly believe that there are only 2 things in life which nobody can rob, steal, smuggle, or snatch from you. Number 1 is your health, and number 2 is your education. I don't know about the third thing. If at all tell me. But these are the only 2 things where you genuinely own them. So if you want to own them, be what Onida's advertise used to be. Neighbors envy, owners pride. So if you want to be really proud of yourself, really, this is the time to understand the importance.
Absolutely. And as you rightly said, lifestyle has to be a continuous process. You cannot just take the pledge just once in a year, that I'm going to be fit and again go back to the similar conditions. Moving on to the next presentation, I invite Mr. Umar Sharif to start with his presentation.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me share my screen and the presentation as well. Let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Great. So very good evening, and thank you, Dr. Arbinder, for this opportunity, and thanks all the experts coming together to fight pre-diabetes. I'm going to talk about the phygital perspectives of diabetes prevention. Phygital meaning face-to-face and digital, and in this, the social media plays a very important role. And what I'm going to do here is to give you a snapshot in terms of data with regards to where are we in the entire world with, or where are we for the entire country with regards to social media. And you can see here that 79% of the population in the country today have a mobile connection, and 45% of them have internet connections as well, and they are users. But when you look at the active social media users, and this is January 2021 data, it clearly says that the penetration of the social media today in India is 32.3%. And over the last 1 year of the pandemic, we have added 78 million active users. And this is amazing. And this is not keeping in view the COVID second wave. And if you add that, and the recent data as of June says we are close to 45% now penetration, which means more and more people are going into social media for healthcare. And by the end of 2025, the data projects that it could be somewhere between 64 to 65%. So the social media users are growing in the country today. What does this mean? This also means we have seen in the last 1.5 to 2 years that the healthcare has evolved. The landscape has completely changed today. And the first one here is the telemedicine. You all have seen it. 50 million new users have come on. There's been a growth of more than 500% here. And that's amazing. We've also seen that with all this, we can see over a period of time, there are new things going to be coming up very soon. 80% of the users we saw in telemedicine were completely new. And you will be surprised, 44% of them, they were coming from non-metro background. What also has grown quite a bit is the online pharmacies. There's been a rapid growth of around 157% during the lockdown. And what we've also seen is maybe 9 million people adding on to online pharmacies. And this will only go to roughly close to 70 million people by 2025. So this is a positive change per se. What we've also seen is that 98% of the healthcare professionals have been engaged virtually during this lockdown, and 68% of the doctors, and many doctors, experts are here in this call, they would agree with me that 68% of the doctors say that they would want to continue with this virtual platform going forward. So there's going to be a mix of a face-to-face as well as a digital platform. We've also seen direct-to-consumer activities. Leading brands have adopted direct-to-consumer models to make sure the patients out there or the consumers out there are happy to buy it directly from them. Now, what does this mean for diabetes? And the way forward, we truly believe that it's going to be integrated. And here, what we mean is integrated personalized diabetes management. It's an outcome-driven holistic approach that we will have to take for diabetes management, especially for pre-diabetes. You would agree with me when a patient is actually either diagnosed or is not even diagnosed. There's a lot of things that goes around. There are caregivers, there are payers, there are nurses, hospitals, physicians, and many things that the patient has to go through. So the integrated personalized diabetes management says that we will quite possibly in future enable patients to master the complexity of managing diabetes, thereby being in the time and range, improves the time and range. This will also help us to collect, integrate, and analyze disease-relevant data points to support treatment decisions and delay the disease progression. And this will also help companies like us to move beyond selling hardware and offer integrated solutions for diabetes management. Let that be pre-diabetes. I'm very happy that we are all coming together to fight the pre-diabetes, because this is where everything starts. Right. And how to do it, this is a very technical way to do it, and the doctors on the call would definitely agree with me. You can see there is a six step here. There is a structured adaptation of a personalized treatment. And for that, proper monitoring is what the doctors have also said in this call. Based on that, there is a structured documentation which comes out, which can help in systemic analysis and collaborative review between both the doctors and the patients, which is basically called as the personalized treatment. And these treatment effectiveness assessments actually go all the way forward to the structured needs assessment and training. What all of this does is it makes the entire treatment personalized, engaging, collaborative, dynamic, evidence-based, and what all we want is outcome-oriented. In the last, I would just say that where we are moving towards is with this whole platform of social media and digital connectivity to engage healthcare professionals and empower patients to make decisions, to have better treatment outcomes. How can this happen? We can connect the HCPs effectively with the patients for the self-care from home. And you've heard that now the virtual diabetes clinics are going to be prevalent, and that they can actually offer this IPDM offerings to make sure with the digital solutions, we are able to transform diabetes digitally. With that, thank you very much. And we truly believe that we do now what patients need next. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Umar, on that. And this also brings us to the second segment of the panel discussion now. We're already halfway through the session and we have so many more questions. Those of you attending, again, I would like to remind you to take the test right away. Moving on, my question now is to Dr. Rakesh Sahai. We have addressed it that somehow Indians progress faster to diabetes. If you could make us understand, and people who've joined in, now in the session, why is it that Indians progress faster to diabetes? Dr. Rakesh.
Yeah, thank you, Pallavi. Yeah, so what we were saying is that Indians have a higher rate of progression. If you look at generally about the rate of progression from pre-diabetes to diabetes, we said that if you look at a 5-year horizon, you see that 50% of people would have progressed to diabetes in India. Whereas if you look at any other country across the world, probably the progression rates are slower. Some populations do have a little higher progression rate, but across the world, what we see is it's about it may be about 15 to 20% of them would have progressed in that period, in that 5-year period. Whereas in India, it would have been about 50% progression. So this clearly shows that we are at least 2 times higher progression rate. And why is that happening? Why? Because of several factors, we could say. One of them is that we are genetically a little more predisposed to develop diabetes. We develop diabetes at a little younger age, and the major factor probably that we are looking at is that we have higher degree of insulin resistance. So we require more insulin to be produced by the pancreas to bring about the same effect on the glucose. So that's why that has been shown in different studies, and that's why what happens is that we are said to be more insulin resistant. We have more insulin being produced, and our beta cells, or the cells which produce insulin, get tired very easily, and they soon start producing lesser amounts of insulin, and that's when diabetes starts developing, pre-diabetes, and then diabetes starts developing. So one could be a factor like that. But other factors, there are other, but this is something probably about which we cannot change very much, but there are things that we can change very clearly, and that is the diet that we're following. Because what we are seeing is that we have a diet which is rich in carbohydrates, and that diet is not very suitable. It is very congenial for the development of all these metabolic diseases for diabetes and heart diseases. So a change in the diet is certainly going to make a lot of difference for our population. And also the fact that we are generally not very active. I mean, our population, and most of us are less physically active. We don't tend to be that physically active. So that's another thing that can be changed. And other factors like cessation of smoking and these factors definitely can make a lot of difference. But by and large, what we've seen is that the progression rates are faster in Indians, so we need to be more agile, more active, and a lot of studies have shown that if populations across the world can benefit from 30 minutes of exercise every day, we need 60 minutes of exercise. So we need to spend more time on exercise. We need to be more active. We need to exercise every day of the week. While others would say across the world, all international bodies will say you do exercise for 5 days a week, you can take a 2-day gap. But here we've seen that once we take a 2-day gap, we get back to the usual levels. I mean, we get back to the higher levels. So therefore, we need to exercise every day of the week. So that is something that we need to, highlight.
Sure.
Thank
So one small lapse can really impact your overall health and especially the diabetic condition. There are a lot of questions coming in from the audiences and we're trying to pick as many. So there's a question from Arnav Paul from Kolkata. This question is for Dr. Mangesh Devaskar. He wants to understand what are the key pillars for fighting pre-diabetics. Though we've touched upon this, but if you could also summarize.
Absolutely. As Dr. Rakesh has adequately elaborated to it, again coming back and repeating the same thing, that keep on following a good lifestyle change. That is the only way to succeed here. Remember that, and that has to be a persistent, continuous process. It cannot be in the pulses or in the episodes or on the weekends or on the weekdays. You need to persistently do it. And as Rakesh has really beautifully elaborated, I'll also just say that we being Indians are very special type of features. We are all what we know as thin, fat Indian, toffee Indians. We are thin from outside, but very fat from inside. Our fat content of our body is much higher in comparison to the Caucasian population or a Western world. And unfortunately, this starts right even in the utero. See, we all know that Indian babies are absolutely the lowest birth weight babies in the entire world comparatively. But if you really measure their insulin levels, as Dr. Rakesh was elaborating, or even Dr. Ganpati was elaborating, that we have very high amount of insulin levels, which actually tells you how much the pancreas, the glucose metabolism system is stressed out. And that starts right inside the womb. That is the reason why we being an Indian population, we need to have additional efforts. Not only just additional efforts, continuous efforts. And one intervention, just avoid eating just because it is available. Do not eat just because it is available. It is such a common feature in most, and we just eat it. We don't realize whether it is really necessary for me. And the best example I can give you are of big fat Indian weddings. You go and there are 20, 25 different counters which are there. And what you do while attending the reception or the wedding is just pick up the plate and keep on, visiting each and every stall. And wow, you keep on getting excited. Wow, there is an Italian, there is a Mexican, wow, there is a Maharashtrian bhaji and bhakri, and all so many things. And you keep on eating and hogging. And I'm not talking about the dessert section at all. And that's how you have eaten. And this is the way the life goes in India. Life is celebration. And unfortunately for Indians, celebration is in one way of expression, is the food and the sweet food, high calorie dense food. And to worsen our misery, we have now started slowly having attraction towards this Western, I would say, energy dense, low nutrition diets, which are very high compact energies, but very poor on nutrition. And that's what I call it as waste toxification of our society, or McDonaldization of our society, or Coca-Colanization of our society, or a Pepsification of our society, whatever you want to. I'm sorry to use these strong words, but this is the fact of life. And this is the place where we need to really understand.
Point taken. And next question is for Dr. Ganpati Bantwal. We're talking about the things that the consumers need to do, but also we want to understand from you, Dr. Bantwal, as to how doctors can, join this movement and join the fight. What is the Endocrine Society of India is doing to, fight against pre-diabetes?
Well, one of the core objectives of the Endocrine Society of India is to actually improve the knowledge about endocrine disorders against to all the doctors as well as to the people at large. In fact, for this, we have been doing a lot of Facebook activities on all the endocrine disorders for that matter. And in the last 15 days, we have done 3 activities on pre-diabetes. Today, it actually ended at 5:30. Today was the last one of that series, which we did on pre-diabetes. So we had people from all over the things, like you had a dietitian, you had a endocrinologist, you had a diabetes per se. So all these things actually could be addressed in that. It was a very nice Facebook Live program.
Okay.
And this is not only for the patients, it's also for the doctors also, for that matter. And in fact, we have done for this event, the best prize for the best caption for pre-diabetes, the best prize for the best logo for pre-diabetes, and also the best. We are doing quiz also on pre-diabetes also, so that more and more number of doctors as well as patients, or for that matter, the lay public at large, know about what is pre-diabetes and how can we prevent it. Most important is not just knowing, take action, and then, as Dr. Mangesh told, get freedom from diabetes. So that's the main thing about this activities. We've been doing a lot of them.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Dr. Bantwal. And now I'm on to the next question, which is for Mr. Omar Sharif. Can you also help us understand what is the power of data, and especially in this current era, which is like the digital era, how can data tracking be used for metabolic health?
Great. Now, thank you for that question. And I think you saw the number that I presented, right? I mean, there's been a 21% growth on the active users for social media. And by the end of the year, it's going to be even bigger. So there has been a rapid rise in the amount of health data collection during this pandemic. And you would agree with me on that. And when the benefits to an individual well-being are clearly expressed, there is a readiness to share personal details. And that's what has happened during the pandemic. Track and trace programs have majorly helped in keeping infection levels under control. This further develops the need for prediction tools powered by artificial intelligence, which is where Fit2Fly comes in, for optimizing the use of available resources, even in the time of crisis. It is expected that in 2021 and also beyond, not just hospitals, but medical insurance firms will also invest more in predictive analytics to be prepared for unforeseen dangers in the future. Pallavi.
Right. So we are now approaching the last 30 minutes of this event. But before we start taking up the audience questions, there's one more question for Dr. Rakesh Sahai. We're talking from both the perspectives as to what the patients would feel and what the doctors are doing. But in your opinion, what is the level of interest among patients for diabetes reversal? Your point, Dr. Rakesh Sahai?
Yeah, Pallavi, I think important thing is, before we look at it from the patient's perspective, I think there's a lot of, there's growing awareness even amongst the healthcare providers, because that is to first come up, and that itself is not 100% as of now, because many of them are still not aware about the fact that diabetes can be reversed, and even pre-diabetes is a stage where we can reverse the development of diabetes, or we can see that they don't progress to diabetes. So this is something which I think we need to increase the awareness, or even amongst the healthcare workers, and there is I would say growing awareness of this condition, and the fact that reversal from progression to diabetes can happen. This is seen quite often, and with, as Omar said, that with the growing reach of digital media, more and more people are getting aware of this. But I think there is a lot more to do, and we need to educate more and more people, and I think that is what we are looking at.
Yes, absolutely. And the purpose behind this event is to create awareness and spread the word from here on. So moving on to the next presentation, I invite Mr. Shankar Banerjee to begin with his point.
Right, thanks, Pallavi. Let me just...
For the audiences who are yet to test their pre-diabetics test, they can go ahead and check that. And also, if you have any questions from our experts, do send in your questions in the chat box. We'll take them up towards the end of the session.
If at all there are any pre-diabetic patients, Shankar, I'm sorry for this, but if at all there are any pre-diabetics, those who have joined this, remember that you need to treat yourself as a full-blown diabetes, or be more intense on your lifestyle change more aggressively, because you have got the best chance to go back to square one, rather than the people, those who already developed diabetes, and then they are attempting to correct themselves.
Right, absolutely.
Quite true. And I think that's where these health checkups come into play. And let me kind of just take a few slides to explain what it's about. I think we've heard quite a bit about what is pre-diabetes, but just to kind of summarize the whole conversation that has been going on for about an hour or so, there are various ways of indicating or testing or diagnosing pre-diabetes. And one of the important things to understand is pre-diabetes also increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. It is not just going to diabetes, but it also talks about how it can help, it can rather increase your risk for cardiovascular diseases. And early detection is a short way of trying to control the progression. We've all heard that, and again I'm kind of reiterating, lifestyle modification is the single most important thing. A lot of behavioral changes are required, and it's not easy. I think behavior change is one of the most difficult things that a person would have to do. Besides therapy, there's also diet also plays a huge role. And how do you plan your diet, and a lot of other things we talked about in terms of other behavioral changes that one needs into to really control this whole the pre-diabetes condition. Now, risk factors, again, we've kind of talked about the risk factors in the previous sections, but just to kind of explain it once again, if there is a heredity, so, if there's somebody in the family, women with PCOS, overweight, if the BMI is more than 25, cholesterol levels, we talked about HDL less than 35 and triglyceride levels higher, and even people who have hypertension. And so all these are really high risk indicators of even if you are not pre-diabetic, it is a risk indicator that chances of getting there is actually quite high. And even if those indicators are not there, there is still a need for a checkup, because it helps you really get to know your individual risk. And that's where there are certain other symptoms one can look at, but nothing kind of beats the thing about doing or getting yourself individually your risk assessed. And a regular check of your vitals and sugar levels, lipids, etc. is always useful, and that really helps you to identify, am I at risk or have I reached a stage of pre-diabetes? Because that's one can really start looking at how do you control. We saw in one of the presentations earlier, there is a trending towards pre-diabetes, there's a diabetes, and then there is a full diabetes. So if you can catch it early, you can definitely stop it and delay at least the progression, and most likely you'll be able to control it. So how does preventive health check really help? I think the most important thing about it is that it helps create a baseline. In all situations, you need to know where you are before you can act and figure out, am I progressing in the right direction? So I think preventive health checks are really important to create that baseline. And God forbid, if in your first checkup you realize that you've got a high baseline, then you can automatically start getting into corrective action mode and look at can I how do I improve my lifestyle, and what do I do about physical activities, etc. Otherwise, every in a regular fashion, regular time intervals, keep checking where are you versus what these some of the data points are which indicate whether one is towards or is already pre-diabetic. And it always helps to know, because even if your level is below the pre-diabetic zone, but if your trend is showing an increasing trend, that itself is a cause of concern that you maybe are not going in the right direction. And finally, I just would like to say that as a company, as Lal Path Labs, we are trying to do quite a bit to kind of help in getting some of these preventive checks done. We are currently available with these kind of checkups in more than 1,000 cities. We offer home collection services in more than 100 cities of India. We have digital mechanisms of reaching there. We have also done online partnerships for people to access us better. We have created helplines available. So quite a bit of things are available. If any of you need that, we are more than happy to help get your preventive checks done. So that's from me as of now, and back to you, Pallavi.
Thank you so much. Thanks for summarizing all the factors and importance of the preventive checkups. I move on to Ms. Farida now, and if you could take us through your presentation as to how the pharma industry is partnering and contributing to this cause.
Yes, so thank you, Pallavi, and good evening, each and everybody. So before we go to how pharmaceutical industries can partner with, in order to prevent and progression of prediabetes to diabetes, we know this, we have been talking since the last 1 hour, that it is not a very well-known condition. And as a result of which, there is very little and very poor awareness of pre-diabetes amongst the masses. And we also be vouched from the fact that very little research data is available across the patient journey. Because there are no symptoms, there is a reduced likelihood or no likelihood of the individual to seek medical advice. And the prognosis differs from individual to individual. So there are definitely differential views from medical societies across the world, researchers, KOLs, medical community, and so on. So when we started kind of thinking about our partnership in order to prevent diabetes and specifically focus on pre-diabetes era, we actually mapped the journey of an individual as to how does he get diagnosed and what does he do when he gets diagnosed. So we found that this individual, mainly as doctor was talking about, that there is an annual checkup, screening camps, or an HCP consult for another condition. The individual gets diagnosed for pre-diabetes, and obviously he is apprehensive and he's eager to know more. And like all of us, as Omar also mentioned, that the usage of internet is kind of so high. So obviously the people will go to internet for self-use information. And also they will get information from peers, friends, family, etc., people with diabetes, as well as with the family physicians. And depending upon what they have understood and what they want to hear, there will be three kind of states of mind of that particular individual. If he wants to hear that, no, nothing, it's okay, it is as his state, and he will stay in that particular state, then nothing is going to happen. Many times he will get confused with so many different information that he's kind of getting from different sources. And there is a group of people who will be motivated to kind of, find access to, go to the HCP for consultation. But the population which will be in a as is state over here is definitely at a higher percentage than the motivated and the confused state. Now, once these two individuals, they go to the HCP for a consult based on the need. And as Dr. Rakesh Sahai also mentioned that, the education for the HCP is also very important. So based on the need of the patient, the doctor provides the advice and based on various guidelines which are published on how to manage pre-diabetes. This leads to the individual being motivated, and therefore he's likely to adhere to the advice given by the doctor, and as a result of which go on a road to prevent diabetes. Or the confused gentleman is less confused, and he may be less likely to adhere to whatever the doctor has again spoken to him. So in this entire piece, where is it that pharmaceutical companies, what are the areas of partnerships that we can have? So one of the most important area is awareness, whatever means that we have. Awareness so that the individuals are made aware. We also know that the awareness immediately does not lead to an actionable. It gets into our subconscious mind, and the awareness has to be kind of regular, frequent, in order so that it makes an individual do some action. But however, it is not going to lead to many individuals going for an action. The action will come when he gets diagnosed. At this particular point of time, we believe that educating the people who are diagnosed with pre-diabetes at the time of diagnosis is extremely important. We cannot prevent him from going to internet. We cannot prevent him from getting a lot of advice from his colleagues, friends, etc. But with education and with the right type of knowledge, we will get less number of people who will be in as a state, and we will get more number of people who will be motivated to consult a doctor. And there will be a large chunk of people who are confused. Now they will go on a fence sitter, and a little push will kind of make them a little positive. So we believe that our partnership in areas of education is also going to really help. And the last piece, when the HCP consults over here, of course, the motivated individuals will have a high chances of adhering and they will be all right. But the fence sitters, they will be more likely to adhere, but then they will need a continuous support of counseling, at least for the 90 days that we are talking about, in order so that, it becomes a way of life for them, and then they continue doing that as a habit, the good lifestyle as a habit. So these are the three areas which are marked in green. And again, I repeat that, research at every level of the patient journey is where the pharmaceutical organizations can definitely partner. In fact, in 2006, we were we have partnered with the first Indian diabetes prevention program, which Dr. Rakesh Sahai said, and we were fortunate to be to be a part of that particular program, which said that yes, lifestyle is extremely important, and it can provide reversal, get back and prevent or delay the progression to diabetes. So I think these are my few thoughts, and thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Frida, on that. And now, since we're talking about the different preventive programs, you also mentioned about that. Dr. Arvinder, there's a question for you. If you could take us through the diabetes prevention program, Hit Early and Hit Hard. What is that all about?
Perfect. It was wonderful listening to you, Farida. Really good and really to the point. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed your presentation. So this begins with a personal story. You know, I have a very strong family history of diabetes. Almost 70% of people above 40 in my family have had diabetes. So at the age of 2 years back, I had 2 attacks of severe hypoglycemia and I was taken to hospital. And one of my friends said, do HbA1c. It was 6.2. And they said, you have reactive hypoglycemia. This is a stage of pre-diabetes.
Okay.
And, a couple of my friends also told that do your HbA1c every 6 months, eat healthy, exercise. But I was already doing that. I wanted to do something more. What I did was I put on a continuous glucose monitoring device on myself. Fitafly was already making the largest Indian food database. What I did was with my co-founders Jayesh and Sailesh, I sat down and I said, just plot these blood sugar values against what I eat. And the data was an eye-opener. So I found that when I ate something healthy, my blood sugars remained in the healthy zone of 100/04, 131, then coming down. But with certain junk foods, I could clearly see with those 7-8 foods, my blood sugars always crossed 140, 150. And I did this over and over again for 14 days, trying to understand. With white bread toast, my blood sugars always crossed 150. And then there was a reactive hypoglycemia because of insulin response. So I did that 3 times. I said, let me check which are the foods which are good for me, not. And we termed this as a personalized glycemic response. And then, from there is where our journey with diabetes started. Because this was the first time we had a tool. Rather than giving a general advice to everybody, we could actually pinpoint the foods which were healthy for certain people and which were not. And this differs. My wife eats these foods and she doesn't get the same kind of response, but I get this response.
Right.
So, so we decided that let's start using data and let's start educating people. Now, just understand, a person with pre-diabetes is still not on medications. But if you tell him, rather than stopping everything, just stop these 5 foods, they are likely to follow because you're showing them the data that these are the foods which are triggering your blood sugar raise. And interestingly, the foods which raise your blood sugar, they are the also ones which lead to fat deposition in the body. So things went drastic for me. My HbA1c came down from 6.2 to 5.5. And this last 2 summers, I have eaten the highest amount of mangoes in the morning. And I know that after eating 2 mangoes, if I go and do a run or exercise, my blood sugars don't cross 140. So I've developed hacks for my body. I also know whenever I eat wheat, my blood sugars rise high, but with rice, they don't go high. So here's a North Indian who eats more of rice than wheat these days. So it has had a tremendous effect on my life. The whole data, the way I could see it. And this is what brings me to the behavior loop, which Dr. Rakesh Sahai, Dr. Mangesh Devaskar and Farida is talking about. Behavior loop. We need to get aware of what's happening in our body so that we can make the right choices. And those choices will give us results. This is true of everything what we do in life. So for me, knowing my personalized glycemic response, tracking my wellness on Fitafly app and nutrition reports helped me make the right choices. And these choices led to the results. It's almost 2 years and I've kept my HbA1c at 5.5. And I'm very happy that I keep tracking still every 3 months. So we created a 90 days program, which we are again talking about. This is called DiabeFly program. This is data and science driven. We extensively follow nudge theory. It takes 90 days to change a lifestyle and 21 days to make a habit. And this is all focused around ultimately behavior change. Interestingly, now we have a psychologist giving a consultation to every patient at the beginning of the program to help them make that behavior change, which is so important in managing any lifestyle disease, whether it's diabetes or pre-diabetes. In diabetes, now we are seeing that a lot of people who come in right stages, as Dr. Sahai has pointed out, they can reverse their diabetes. But the right staging, right selection of patient becomes very, very important. In around the world, US runs a diabetes prevention program, UK NHS runs a diabetes prevention program, there's a Canadian diabetes prevention program. There are companies like Omada, Noom, Livongo, Welldoc in US, which have pioneered the ways of diabetes prevention and diabetes reversal. And I think similar thing is going to happen in India. I would like to end by saying that pre-diabetes is the right stage to put a person into a digital therapeutic kind of strategy. This will help in better food selection, better exercise, managing stress and sleep, again, which is very important that Dr. Ganpati Bantwal talked about. And this will bring about behavior change. This is relevant for individuals and for organization. We have already used technology for getting awareness, but now the time has come for action, which is the outcomes, which is the promise for digital therapeutics. And for doctors also, I'm happy to see that all the doctors these days talk about technology so much. And this is what is leading to a U-turn in the space of pre-diabetes, and DTX is rightly positioned to bring that change. So
Sure.
please don't wait till diabetes happens. Hit early, hit hard, and let's fight pre-diabetes together.
This brings us to the last segment, and there are a lot of audience questions coming up. So I would request all the panelists to briefly answer the next few set of questions. And the first question is for you, Dr. Harbinder. I mean, you've, of course, took us through the entire preventive program, but also, do you think Indians are not preventive health focused, since we've already touched upon that? How is digital therapeutics impacting the overall preventive aspect of diabetes care?
Tough question to answer. Shankha has already spoken about preventive health mindset of Indian people. But I think the typical preventive mindset is going and doing blood tests or visiting a doctor, which should be done at least once a year. But what people need is, after they meet their doctor, if they've been diagnosed to have pre-diabetes or diabetes or any other health condition like hypertension, they need support on an ongoing basis. See, what happens is I'm a practicing doctor. I see patients in my clinic, I tell them to eat healthy. They will nod their head, they'll go home, then there is no support. So what do we really need is nudging them on a day-to-day basis, showing them data, pushing them towards behavior change over a sustained period of time. That is why digital therapeutics can actually, how it can help in terms of helping them make that change, which doctors have advised them, or which they themselves deep down know that we need to make that change. But there is now somebody pushing them to make that change. That support system is the most important part. It can be digital therapeutics, it can be any tracking app, it can be your group of friends who are keeping each other accountable. But that support system is the one which is the most important support system for people to, change their behavior and get onto a healthy lifestyle.
Sure, sure. One question is for Mr. Shankar Banerjee. If you could share the vision of Lal Path Labs as to what is the company doing for the pre-diabetic situation in India, and how do they see the awareness, which we've already addressed several times during the discussion.
Yeah, so even, for Lal Path Lab, we kind of started with a diabetes care program about in 2013. But that was focused on diabetics. And, as we kind of were going through the program, we realized that it is actually important to try and catch it maybe even earlier. And then we designed the program. And about 3 years back, we launched another, or, changed the program into a program called Sugar and Me, where we then, created these packages, and, we figured out that we need to really reach to much larger audience. And, as I mentioned earlier, we then reached out to, we kind of made this available more than 1,000 cities. We obviously continue to promote it, and that's something which will take some more time. But yes, the work is on, and we are also new to it, and I think we will now continue working on making this really an important part of the agenda.
Sure. Mr. Umar, can you share your 2 cents on what the policymakers need to do at large for this situation, pre-diabetes?
Yeah. I can, and I'm a little bit passionate about this, but it's great to see, Pallavi, how the government is actually approaching digitization in different sectors. And you would have heard about the concept of National Digital Health Mission, which is going to promote and utilize the digital data in India. Collecting, storing, and processing the critical data on a large scale will open many possibilities. And this can be powered with additional tools like the artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. Now, what the policymakers can do, and we cannot do something at a national level, Pallavi. It has to happen at a state by state level. Right. And I think Dr. Harbinder in the very beginning stated 3 things. He said, create awareness, diagnose early, and stop progression. And I think this, we can do it in a very sequential manner in different states. Let's say, for example, diagnose early. We can do the screening programs with ASHA Anganwadi workers at different levels to make sure we diagnose who the patients are, both at a pre-diabetes and a diabetes level. That's number 1. Number 2, this should go into data formation with regards to creating the burden of diabetes, which can shape the policy state by state to make sure we have a plan for prevention and control. And last but not the least, also what Ms. Farida said about education and counseling, this becomes a very important part. This needs to continue, because then there has to be a progression, stopping. And at that stage, you need people counseling patients both at the pre-diabetic as well as the diabetic level. So this is what I would suggest. We'll have to work very closely to make sure India reaches the universal healthcare coverage at some stage, and we need to work together to make it happen. Thank you.
Ms. Farida, your closing comments as to what organizations can do to fight the cause and optimize metabolic health?
Yeah, so I think as an organization, I think every organization, we have got so many employees with us, right? I mean, we have about 6,000 employees who are employed by us. And I'm even talking about medical organizations like API and ESI, and we have got so many doctor populations which are there. And so if each and every one of us kind of make sure that, as Dr. Ganpati Bantwal was saying, that he was diagnosed as pre-diabetes, I'm sure many doctors would be pre-diabetic, considering so you all don't have so much of time because you're so busy with the patients. I think that could be a starting point. I'm just thinking of as I'm listening to all of us saying that, we have got at least around 60,000-70,000 doctors that we could do a screening test and figure out that, and create some programs for them. In order so that, and then it automatically is going to kind of drill down. But having said that, I think in our organizations for diabetes, on every 14th of November, we do have health checkup camps. That is number one. And now, of course, during the COVID, we did the health checkup camps for not only diabetes, but also for pre-diabetes, because, we wanted to protect our people from whoever would get COVID from any of the abnormal situations. And so I think that is one thing we do. And being leaders in diabetes, we are always kind of talking to our 6,000 field force. I think they would be they are well informed about diabetes than the others. So I think that this is a small bit that we are doing in our own ecosystem. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that. And last question is for Dr. Sanjay Kalra. Like after this entire whole 90 minutes discussion, how do you perceive, should people perceive pre-diabetes as an obstacle or is it an opportunity? Dr. Kalra.
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for all of us to improve our health. I'd like to just suggest to everybody, whether we are from pharma or from allied specialties or from the medical fraternity or the public at large, our policymakers as well. Let's be aware, make yourselves aware. Assess yourself for diabetes, for pre-diabetes, for glucose control. Dr. Ganpati does it, Dr. Arbinder does that, everybody does that. And then take action. We'll talk about what action we can take. And do remember to audit yourself as well. Audit yourself every now and then to see if you're on the right track. That is what our experts have told us.
Right.
What action can we take? Sensible sustenance, sustained physical activity. That would be the first S. The second would be stress management and sleep hygiene. And the third would be sensible use of drugs. We have many drugs also that you can use in pre-diabetes to control glucose and also to prevent complications. So take them after consulting with your doctor. Simple things. This is an opportunity for us. Let's make the most of it.
Thank you, Dr. Kalra. And this brings us to the last 5 minutes of the session. We would like to take the opportunity to take a couple of questions from the audiences. First question is for Dr. Ganpati Bantwal, and it's from Anshu and Sandeep. So I'll just read out the 2 questions for you, Dr. Bantwal. Firstly, what are the best practices, do's and don'ts for a healthy lifestyle, which is not known to common people? I think we've addressed that one, but how can youngsters mitigate the risk of inheriting diabetes from their parents?
As I told you initially that increased physical activity is very important, 60 minutes at least, because I hear patients saying, I'm walking how many minutes? Say 30 minutes. What is the pace you are going? 3-4 kilometers per hour. So that's not enough. It should be more brisker. You should sweat it out 60 minutes, and then that's be useful. Now for the children, now this is very, very important. See, if you develop obesity in childhood, that tracks. And obesity is an important risk factor for developing type 2 diabetes. So all the things should begin in the schools itself. See that now I think there is a rule coming that you shouldn't have junk foods nearby, and also those things, etc., have started coming. So don't eat junk food, don't eat Coca-Colaization should stop. So in the US, previously, what used to happen was when you go to a restaurant, you must take a Coca-Cola. Now that culture is happening here, and now that has changed in the US. They are now taking water. So we should also ensure that we take water and not this Coca-Colas. So if we do these changes, and secondly, exercise, the physical training activities should be there in all the schools every day, at least for 1 hour, so that we inculcate this good habit. So if we do this, if you begin with the children, they will tell your parents also, eat healthily. I have been told like this. So if it begins there, I think we can actually go a long way in preventing the children itself, and also not only that, they'll help the parents also not to develop diabetes.
Sure. Dr.
Pallavi,
Sahai,
I had one question for Dr. Kalra particularly, which one of my friends has specifically asked. He says, what should be the goal for HbA1c for type 2 diabetes, 6.5 or 5.6? Because we just heard from Dr. Sahai that even pre-diabetes is not without CVD and stroke risk. So should we lower the ideal management to 5.6 instead of 6.5 for at least certain age of people with pre-diabetes? With diabetes when they're on therapy?
Yeah. Certainly, it should be below 6.5, and the Japanese guidelines do say that. They are very prudent and pragmatic guidelines. So they say bring the HbA1c down as low as possible, provided that you do not cause side effects from the drugs. So as long as there is no hypoglycemia, we should bring the A1c down as much as possible.
Okay.
Surely. So before we close the session, there's an important announcement that has to be made. I request Dr. Arbinder Singhal to please conclude the session with the pre-diabetics charter.
So this is a charter which actually was prepared by Dr. Sanjay Kalra and myself, because since we are all here today, I wanted the audience to look at the kind of commitment which all of us have made here today by being here together in one forum, and also pre-diabetes charter which we are releasing on 14th of August, signed by all of us. One is why are we doing this, which we have talked about. How are we doing it is by creating awareness, and what are we going to do in the next 3 months is by increasing awareness, work towards early diagnosis, educating people as Farida talked about, and then making suitable representation to policymakers. So we are going to send this charter to various ministries and talk about pre-diabetes, because now I think the whole focus of policymakers has been towards diabetes and very less focus towards pre-diabetes. It is less expensive, it's easier, and it is the right stage to invest all our energy into. That's the belief, and that's why we have signed this charter. And I thank Dr. Kalra, Dr. Ganpati Bantwal, Dr. Rakesh Sahai, Mr. Omar Sharif, Dr. Mangesh Tivaskar, Mr. Shankho Banerjee, and Ms. Farida for signing this and being here today. It's been wonderful listening to you all. Thank you for signing the charter.
Thank you.
Indeed, it's been a great session, a lot of learnings, a lot of unlearnings also from this session. Thank you, each one of you, to take out time on a Saturday and mark this event, which is the World Pre-Diabetics Day. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Just one message for
Thank
the
you.
listeners. All the questions which have come in the chat box, will be recording answers to them and sending to everyone by email. I know that we could not answer all the questions. Specifically, there were a lot of questions for Dr. Bantwal, Dr. Sahai, Dr. Kalra, and Dr. Mangesh Tivaskar. But we'll be sending the answers to all of you in the emailer very soon. And as I can see, we are all on time, and have a great Independence Day tomorrow, and happy Pre-Diabetes Day to all of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care of
Bye-bye.
yourself.
Right. Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.